Hi, Craig. Welcome to Valio's podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So you've been a very popular person in my team.
Okay, good to know.
And when we were looking at like who should I interview next, my team's like, please talk to Craig. He's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
Okay, good.
So Craig, if you can maybe introduce yourself just high level.
Yep.
That would be great.
Yeah, so I've been in Dubai for 21 years.
That's crazy. So you're a Dubaian?
Yes, pretty much. Still waiting for my passport.
Me too.
Been in the fitness industry for 18 years. And over the last 8 of those years, I've owned my own gym. We're located down in JLT. And we do a lot of like, call it functional strength and conditioning training. So high intensity conditioning work, but balancing that out with a lot of focused strength work as well.
Craig, I was curious to know, how did you start your fitness journey? Why did you get into fitness? Was it something that you grew up with or it came later on in life?
It definitely was something we grew up with. My father was in the military.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean it was really strict upbringing and he forced us to exercise.
He was doing that to the people he was
in the military,
training.
Yeah, not to us, luckily. And it was just copying him. And we used to, when I was 10 years old and my younger brother was 6, I remember just following him in the garage, copying his circuits. If he was doing dumbbell bench press, would grab the plastic weights and just do next to him.
Yeah.
And even things like on family holidays, he'd get up and running in the morning and he'd come back for the last couple of kilometers, pick us up and we'd go for a run with him as well. And that was always like a treat, something fun to do with dad.
So you have a brother?
Yes.
And so okay,
so
very nice.
He's in the fitness industry as well.
Okay.
And it was never forced. It was never like, you have to exercise. It's really good for you to exercise. It was just like, hey, I'm doing this. If you want to join me, then you're welcome to join type thing. And that just got more serious the older we got, and we found that we could do more challenging circuits with him and carry heavier weights as we got older and learned that way. And then my career just kind of led me down that path, being that was an active interest of mine and a hobby of mine to train. It felt natural for me to go down the route of getting into the fitness industry.
So you tried your stint in military, you mentioned?
Yeah, very, very, very brief. It was literally a day. Because of my upbringing.
So you thought like when you were growing up, okay, I'm going to go into military too, like my dad.
Yeah, I had no plan B. It was I have a photo of me as a baby crawling on the floor with a green beret on, my dad's hat on. As young as I can remember, we were raised up on near a military base where we'd go in on weekends and train and use the facilities with my dad and stuff. So we were just in that environment quite a lot.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, yeah, this is cool. This is what I want to do when I grow up. And then I had no plan B. Moved to Dubai, went through school for a couple of years here, and as soon as I was old enough to apply for the military, went back to the UK to undergo the PRMC, which is the Potential Royal Marines course. And in the build-up, so backstory, my dad was a PTI, so his job while he was in the military was to put recruits through their basic training and a lot of the training that they went through. So he made their life very difficult whilst they were applying to be in the military. So my dad didn't necessarily, he was proud that I wanted to be in the military, but didn't think it was a good idea. My mum didn't want me to go and other people advised me not to.
Yeah.
And I never understood why. Yeah. And the first time as a group, all these young 16-year-old men, first time we got addressed as a group, the corporal points at me, singles me out and stands me up. And he said, what's your name? I said, Craig Harriman. And he recognized the name. And I look a lot like my dad. So he's like, I knew it, sit down. Just from that point on, I knew I was going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
And every single opportunity they got to make an example of me, like your father would do better than this, your dad's better, your dad, this is the whole time. So for the first 24 hours there, I felt like I had to prove something, and I pushed myself on all the run here, do this,
I mean,
do
it wasn't
this,
even like, it wasn't only physical, it was actually mental pressure.
There was some aptitude tests and stuff like that, but the hardest part was the mental thing for me. And I think there was, I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it was never from my parents, especially not from my father. And I felt like it was something that I wanted to do, but to follow my dad's footsteps. Yeah. And I felt like it would make my parents proud if I did do this, and that I would be disappointed if I didn't. He warned me as well, because he used to take the recruits through the exercises. He said they do these things called liveners. And what they do is before the physical test, which the first one, which I failed, was a 3-mile run. Yeah. And the time for the cutoff for the 3-mile run isn't super aggressive. It's very achievable. I could do it easily. Not easy, but definitely within reach. But what happens is before this, for 20 minutes, they're like, run here, do 5 burpees, do this. And I was trying to prove myself. So I raced everyone. I was the first person there. And he warned me, he's like, don't get caught slacking, but don't go all out on the liveners. Yeah. I went all out on the liveners and tired myself out, trying to prove a point. and then got into the run, and I missed the cap by 30 seconds. And that was it. No option to continue. You failed straight away. And I was devastated. At the time, I was gutted. I
can imagine you were 16.
Yeah.
This was your plan. What happened there?
So very upset, very emotional about it. On the day, I felt like I failed. I felt like a disappointment, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea. And I think within a couple of weeks, we came back to Dubai. It was in the summer, came back to Dubai, sat around doing nothing and speaking to my parents. And I had like two options. I used to love graffiti on paper, not on walls, nothing criminal, just like design work. So mum was like, why don't you go into graphic design? And my other hobby was fitness. My dad's like, you could go into fitness, you could travel the world with it, whatever. And I was like, okay, so looked at courses, did a fitness course, and loved the fitness course. And before I'd even completed the course, I'd been offered a job at Fitness First. So this was back in 2006.
So when they had just launched
second club in the Middle East. So there was Batuta, and then Uptown Murdiff was the second club, and got offered a job before I even finished the course. And I was like, yeah, great, first job, just start working the gym, learn the ropes, and learn more in 6 weeks of just being on the gym floor from other experience. All these guys in the gym lifting all the weights taught me more than I learned in the entire course that I did on learn how to be a trainer. And then from there, that just progressed into
training.
So first job was just work on the gym floor, putting people's weights away, basically. Then upskilled, learned to become a trainer, found CrossFit, went into the whole CrossFit thing.
So when did you start training people? At what age?
That would have been 17, 18. Yeah.
So I find it interesting, the whole nature nurture thing. I think a lot of also, I would imagine, Middle Eastern families, we don't grow up with let's go for a run. It's not in our DNA. I grew up with a father who's a workaholic. So I think that's in my DNA. I have it right now. But it wasn't like, let's go for a run. It was never part of our everyday. And when I got into fitness, actually, it was because of health issues, and there was no other way. I'm like, okay, I'm going to just show up to the gym every day, and I'll just copy people, and I'll find ways to do things. And then from there, the fitness, it requires a lot of time, and then ended up like climbing a mountain. I haven't run a marathon yet. It's not in my go-to. Cool. It's not in my go-to right now. But how much do you think is nature or nurture?
So I think with like, if you're looking at just general population, someone trying to be fit and healthy, it definitely can be learned and taught, and you can learn to enjoy it. It doesn't have to be that from a young age you have to be indoctrinated into knowing how to exercise, and it can definitely learn. You're a great example yourself, and look what you're doing for work now as well. You've gone kind of full swing into that. But if you're looking at, say, the top 1% athletics, that's probably nature.
If you want to be the best of the best,
that's going to be hard to learn, and there's a lot of things like genetically that the best in the world have the advantage of, and there's a lot of people that claim, as a post on the wall there, persistence is something talent can't replace, and hard work beats talent every day, but that can take you so far. And then there's this element of genetic, being gifted to run faster, jump higher, lift heavier, and the way your body's built, and there's certain things that do give you an advantage. But if we're just talking about health, longevity, and learn, I definitely think that's something that you can teach. Like, we have a 3-year-old son. He copies us. If we're stretching on the evening or doing burpees, he'll come and want to do the same thing, and we try and take him down to the gym regularly so he can see people exercise. So I definitely think you can create an environment that encourages people to want to be more fitness and health minded. But I definitely don't think it's necessary for people to take up. Maybe it would be harder to start if you've never been to the gym and you're 40 trying to start. It'll be much harder. But it's definitely not the sort of, if you've never been to the gym, you're not going to be able to do great things.
And I mean, the Olympics are now, so I'm like a bit obsessed watching all these gymnasts, and I guess if you want to get into the Olympics where 1 second matters, you might need both worlds, that you 100%. Might need nature and nurture.
Yeah, and I'm sure if you look at all these Olympians, they've probably been from a very, very, very young age surrounded and put into environments and situations where they're going to be able to take advantage of that and build on that nurture.
I would imagine that it's interesting. You've had your own gym for a while. So you've seen members come, you've seen them grow, you've seen them, what they have become. I mean, gym or a good coach can really change your life. I mean, I can see it from Jamie, as I mentioned, our chief well-being officer. I can imagine something your members don't see, but you and your wife see, is how these members came in the first day and where they are now. What do you think, like, if you have, you don't need to mention names, but stories that like, okay, how much actually the gym changed their life?
Well, there were some very extreme examples and some kind of more subtle ones of just people saying things like, they used to be, for example, weekend was all for play, going out, socializing, lots of brunching and things like that. Whereas now it's just like, oh, I want to make sure I get to bed before 10 p.m. every day. And just that kind of mindset shift between maturing as an athlete and focusing more on their recovery and things like that. That's what that's like a win for us, because it isn't like a huge swing, like they lost 50 pounds, but just the mindset shift of like, my health is really important to me. So I'm going to prioritize that over staying up late drinking.
Does it first start as being disciplined? I'm going to sleep at 10 p.m. Or actually it's the beginning of it and realizing I'm actually enjoying this.
More so
I feel better.
Definitely.
And then let me sleep early so I can do better tomorrow.
Yeah, it's really hard to try and tell someone without them understanding. So someone is a night owl and habitually sleeps at 12:30. You'd be like, hey, I need you to sleep before 12. They're not going to, even if they want to, they're not going to necessarily be able to unless they fully buy into the reason why that's so important. But once they see, okay, my training's getting better, how can I take this to the next level? Okay, we've got to focus on other areas. How are we eating? Are we hydrating? How is our sleep? And then we can say, hey, if you slept a little bit early, you'd be less tired, you'd get more recovery, you'd probably feel better on your next workout. Then that's a reason for them to come into bed. So people come to us, we're a physical training space. People come to us for exercise. What we try and give people back is like, cool, this hour of the day, we're going to make the best training hour of your day. But what are we looking at with the other 23 hours? How are you sleeping? How are you eating? How's your stress management? All these other factors. A lot of gyms do a really good job at getting people in good shape, but not a lot of gyms focus on the outside stuff. And that's where we try and kind of like separate ourselves to be like, hey, this is, and based on purely on personal experience. I said to you before, I've been a coach for 18 years and the first 15 years were just training focused. Whereas more recently, understanding the benefits of what happens outside the gym being as important for that. But that's kind of like the subtle differences on changes we've seen in our gym. There's been some extreme cases, and there's a lady that came because her kids came. So her son was playing rugby, he wanted to come. Her youngest daughter wanted to come because the older brother was coming. She's like, well, if the kids are coming, I'm going to come as well. And when she came in, she couldn't do a lunge without someone holding a hand for balance.
I find this so interesting because I had the same problems. Like, you would think I'll squat. Okay, I can do a squat. But actually, if you've never done it before and you don't repeat it, a squat or things that seem very simple, looking at someone doing it can be very difficult.
100%. And it's like the strength requirement, the stability requirement, these are all things that people underestimate.
Core.
But if it's not trained, it can be very weak. And the same lady, she couldn't run 200 meters. It used to be like 100 meters very slowly. Whereas you look at her now, and her win was like, do you know why I'm really happy that I came here? So I don't have to ask the kids to put the water jug on the cooler now. I can do it myself.
Exactly.
And that's like a huge win. And she's not really old. She's like 52, so not crazy old, but just never trained. And then came from not being able to stand on one leg separately or to balance in the lunge position to be able to carry the 5-gallon jug of water on the thing on her own. Now it's like a massive win for her. And now she runs repeated 200 meters for a minute and a half, and it's just crazy the improvement she makes, and everyone sees that and thinks that's great, but a lot of people will kind of make maybe not as much progress and make small progress but never know. So for us, it's really important that we measure stuff, so everything has to be measurable, so you can take metrics like, oh, what weight did you do for this exercise, or what was your time for this exercise, and seeing the improvement. Because if you came for 6 months, you're like, oh, I kind of feel a bit the same. As well, no, you've gotten 2% better here, 2% better there, and
I mean, we're humans, right? We need to see some like wins to be able to continue.
100%.
But she started at 52, so there's never a wrong time to start. And I always believe you have your own mountains, and everyone's mountain is different. Someone's mountain can be I climbed 2 levels of stairs and I can still breathe. Someone could be I ran an ultra marathon. But know your mountain, basically.
100%.
One thing we were discussing and we find very interesting in Valeo is people, or usually you think that if somebody is fit or is into fitness, they are also healthy. And this is one of the findings we realized, and something that you went through too, basically. So if you are fit, or you run a basic marathon, or you can press this much, or you can carry this much weight, does it mean you're healthy inside?
Not at all. And this is kind of one of the biggest things that I've changed my mind on, is this exactly what you're saying, is being fit doesn't necessarily mean healthy. And I thought I was very fit at the time when I was first introduced to Valeo through Sasha. She was like, no, do the blood test. I want you to do it. And I didn't have a lot of interest in doing it at first. And at the time,
you're like, I'm fit.
Yeah,
I'm the coach here. I can't do it.
I was like, it's great for the community. Let's get you guys in.
Yeah. I remember the first day we did the event at Base, we had a queue.
Yes.
Oh, it was so good.
Dozens of people. And I was training a lot at the time, like very intense, doing a lot of local competitions, fitness, training very hard, like 4 days a week, smashing myself.
Yeah.
And did this blood test, and the results came back, and I was like, oh wow, okay, that's not great. And then loads of the markers were down. Testosterone levels were really low, much lower than what I thought they would have been.
Yeah.
Especially for someone who I considered to be as young and fit as I was. I was just, okay, it's really low. And it was funny. This is my favorite Jamie story, and I was really worried about the testosterone. And he kept telling me about these other things, and this is probably more important. I was like, but what about the testosterone? And he went, look at your beard. You don't have a testosterone problem. I was like, okay, fine, good.
Yeah.
But that's a classic Jamie answer.
Yeah, Jamie will have like a, like he'll shut you up. You'll be like, okay, fine, we accept the point.
Which I appreciate that. But at the same time, I was like, no, I want to do something about this. And then that prompted me to go on this route of like understanding what health is and what metrics and ways you can improve health through stuff outside the gym versus leaning into like training really hard to be as fit as possible and looking at trying to be as healthy as possible. And then obviously there's a big carryover, and improving your fitness level has a huge impact on your actual health, especially when you look at long-term health. Yeah. But reducing my training intensity and volume had a massive improvement on my health numbers, and not just my health numbers, my fitness numbers. This is the crazy one. Fitness
numbers. So reducing your workout or the intensity improved your health and your fitness performance.
Reducing it, the intensity and the volume, so less training and training at a lower intensity. Yeah. So I was doing a lot of really high intensity stuff. So we used to do a lot of CrossFit type training, which is very, very fast, do everything as fast as you can, do it as heavy as possible, very high stress. And at the time, I was a new father, own a business, which is just stressful, all these other life stressors, and then put a really intense exercise on top of that, which is also a stressor. Yeah. So then pulling that one back, because I have to be a dad, I have to be a business owner, I have to do all this other stuff, but I don't need this. Yeah. So at the time, it was a really hard battle for me to, this thing that I love doing, because it feels really great at the time, to pull this back was very difficult. Yeah. But what I did is I switched that out for zone specific training. So actually looking at zone 2 training. Yeah.
So if we can explain what's zone 2 training.
Absolutely. And this was modeled on a lot of Peter Attia's kind of what he talks about. Yes. Zone 2 is low intensity exercise that can be done at a conversational pace for extended periods of time. And what this does, it builds your, if you think of your fitness as a pyramid, it builds the base, it's the foundation of your pyramid. So what you want to try and do is expose yourself to lots of this lower intensity cardio work, walking, and it'll depend on fitness levels, but walking, cycling is really effective. Yeah. Running, most people aren't going to be fit enough to be able to run at zone 2, but really slow running. If walking's too easy and running's too hard, you can walk with some weight on your shoulders. Yeah. Any machine that you can perform at a low intensity. The prescription is ideally at least 150 minutes per week. Okay. And you're looking at stints of 30 to 60 minutes. Target heart rate is about 60 to 70% of your max. Yeah. But the cue is just be able to hold a conversation the entire time. Yeah. It should be comfortably uncomfortable. So you should be able to talk your whole way through it. So you could sit next to someone on the machine and talk to them the whole time and still be zoned.
Have you done the VO2 max test?
This is the most interesting thing for me. There's two things when I did the Valio test and we did a retest 4 months later. Yeah. I did the VO2 max because we did the blood test and I was like, no, I want the full spectrum. I'm going to go get the VO2 max test. And again, I was disappointed with the VO2 max test. Yeah. And the type of training I was doing before, which is very sporadic in nature.
So VO2 max shows actually your fitness level. So you expected to basically measure at the highest.
Yeah. VO2 is how much oxygen your body utilizes, and it's divided by your weight. So you get a number, you get a score. And I was, like I said, was training very hard for competitions, so expected to have a really high score. But the type of training I was doing, this kind of like crazy, really intense exercise, which is common in a lot of exercise programs, your heart rate during training kind of like gets really intense and you get a little bit tired, so it comes down, so it's all over the place, versus a zone 2 workout, it'd be very consistently in one target zone. So you improve that specific fitness zone a lot versus being kind of all over here, and you get a little bit of improvements everywhere. So spending more time in this zone, and then so that's the zone 2 element. And the other element is if you look at that as your base, your zone 4 stuff is your threshold work, which is your peak. So and Peter Attia calls it the more area you can cover, so the bigger your base and the higher your peak of your triangle. Yeah.
If you think about a building, right? Your foundation is stronger the higher you go.
Exactly. Yeah. So we did the VO2 max test, and again, disappointed with the results, like with the testosterone. for 4 months, pulled back my training, so doing less.
So what were the exact changes? Let's say if we have someone, a man in your situation, what were the things you've changed, significantly in the next 4 months that improved your results?
So training was reduced. I was training 6 days a week. 4 days were this really high intensity CrossFit stuff, dead on the floor after every session, trying to find the hardest workouts I can do. So I took those out. I did those once a week because it's still what I enjoy doing.
Yes.
But switched those for lower intensity cardio training or interval training for the zone 2 stuff. So I still kept my strength work the same. Strength work didn't change, but I was doing 1 or 2 sessions a week of this zone 2 training and 1 or 2 sessions a week of the zone 4 training, which is a higher intensity, but for intervals, working like 4 minutes on, 4 minutes off, for as hard as you can for that period of time.
Yeah.
So switch the really high intensity out for more controlled zone training.
Yeah.
So I wasn't doing this hyper stressful, really taxing, high cortisol exercise. I was doing more focused zone stuff.
Yeah.
Doing that training changed my VO2 score from 48 to 53.
By the way, 48 is still a great score.
Right, but for someone who's at the time 33 and training very hard, I'd expect a bit more.
Yeah.
But in 4 months for a 5-point swing on your VO2, the guy doing the test was like, "How have you done this? What did you do?"
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other things. I was lighter because I'd lost a little bit of weight, so that affects the score. So, but an improvement of 11% was.
Yeah, it is crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
I mean, that now the score you had was an athlete's score.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what in terms of supplements, food, stress, what did you work on there?
I actually went on to intermittent fasting, which I know isn't a protocol that everyone should use. And I did quite short time windows of restricted eating for a short period of time. For me, it just helped with focus. It helped with energy. I don't give a lot of nutrition advice because I feel it's very polarizing and everyone's different.
So what worked for you?
For me, it
worked.
So
intermittent fasting for women, for example, shouldn't be very long hours. Men can handle it.
Exactly. For me, the other thing, the reason I did it is I had weight to lose.
Okay.
So for me, it was okay if I got lighter, whereas for a lot of people, if they don't have a lot of excess weight to lose, they might end up burning muscle as well as fat, so it's not actually conducive for health. Gotcha. So I did that, just focused on the basics, which was getting enough sleep, getting enough steps in per day.
Yes. Brian Johnson was here actually. He gave the guy who's into longevity wants
Blueprint.
to live, Blueprint, and he was doing a talk at Nas house, and he said about sleep. He's like, think of it like it's your most important meeting of the day.
Yes.
So how do you go late to a meeting and you apologize and you're like, you need to make it on time. Sleep is your most important. If you say I'm going to sleep at 10 p.m., that is your most important point. Once he put it like that, I'm like, okay.
Can't be late.
I can't be late. I was a bad sleeper, and it makes a huge difference.
Massively.
Huge difference.
And I think people underestimate the value that small improvements can make. So if I went to bed 30 minutes earlier per day, that doesn't sound like a big change.
Yes.
But if you do that, plus drink half a liter more water, eat a little bit better, get a few more steps in, then all of a sudden you've improved 4 things, 5%. That's 20% improvement, which is a huge return on your health. We did quite a lot, and one of the most important things was finding someone to keep me accountable. So I had a friend in a similar position. He wanted to do the same thing. So we agreed that we would hit a sleep target, a step target, a hydration target, a sunlight exposure target, an exercise target, and there was one more which I always forget. A morning routine target. So something in the morning, which for mine was meditation or breath work. And the goal was just to try and hit within 80% of our target for these things consistently for 4 months. So it wasn't even to be 100%. It wasn't be perfect.
80%.
Be within 80%.
And what about, did you take any supplements?
Supplements, went with adding rhodiola rosea, just as a kind of a stress management. Ashwagandha and berberine were the main ones. And that was a recommendation from Jamie, because when I first did my test, my blood sugar levels were high. I was 5.5, so that's pre-diabetic.
That's very interesting. And your food was healthy at that time?
I'd say I've never had a problem with diet. We've always been healthy. Again, my wife's super into just like we eat 30 vegetables a week. Always greens on the...
Sugar is one of these things that you don't expect sometimes to be high, and it's high. And it's very much related to stress. If the food is good and you exercise and it's still high, it's stress.
And that resulted actually in a lot of bouts of mental health issues for myself as well. And through that period leading up to that year when we decided to make all these changes were severe bouts of depression in that year building up to, which prompted to go into finding all this information out.
Yeah.
And then so berberine was one of the things Jamie recommended. So those were the main ones. I'm not a big supplement guy myself. I think we try and eat well enough. Like I said, we try and get 30 vegetables 100%. A week and try and get it all from food, but understand that, especially in today's world.
That's your first way. If you can fix it with food, you fix it. 100%. If not, unfortunately, the food quality that we have right now, and I think the lifestyle that we live also has come to a point where we need some support when it comes to, I want to get back into, I find very interesting is that more is not better when it comes to fitness. Yeah. And, you said I had the goal to do all of these things for the next 4 months. Was that, maybe somebody listening to this will be like, but that would create anxiety for me. Like it's such a rigid plan. How did you keep it like it was more of like, I'm improving myself. This is not set for failure. Yeah. Instead of like, okay, I'm going to fail this. I need to do so many things.
So all of those changes I still do to this day. This was 3 years ago. Yeah. 2.5 years ago. And it was never about, I'm going to do this really intense program for 4 months. This is me changing my life today to move forwards. Exactly. And the 4 months was just the time that we tested it in. So I said I'd wait. I'd originally planned 3 months, but just various things happened. The testing, it took 4 months. So I just used the 4 month mark to highlight how much change you can create in 4 months.
Yes. 4 months you can see change in your blood biomarkers.
Because the most impressive stat was the testosterone went up by 50%.
Oh, very
So it went from like low numbers to average numbers, but a huge swing in improvement. And again, the stress related element's probably the biggest swing there. Yeah. But for me, it was like, I'm not happy with where I am. I want to make these changes that I want to keep and forming them as habits. Yeah. So now I go to bed at the same time every day. I always hit 10,000 steps. I always drink 3 liters of water. I always get up and do some sort of morning practice, and I move every day. Yeah. And those aren't things that I used to do daily. And it wasn't like I decided and it became habits. It takes time to form the habits. Yes. And often picking up 5 habits at once is very difficult. So starting with one's a good idea. Do one for 30 days and try and make it stick. Yeah. But all those things are non-negotiables now. They're not things I have to think about doing. They're things
it's like your checklist.
They're non-negotiables.
Yeah. Your checklist that allows you. I always say, what is your checklist? Yeah. Know your checklist to keep sane. Yeah. Someone could be that I want to do breath work. I want to do yoga. Someone could be that I want to put the music high and dance in the room. Yep. And someone last time I was, someone was asking me in my checklist, can I have like 1 lazy day per week? I'm like, if this is what you need, you want to Netflix and chill all day, that's what keeps you sane. Yeah. You just need to know yourself. Like, I think currently with the whole social media and, people sharing their like my daily routine, people think that should be my daily routine. 100%. No, it's what works for you. But you have to move. And whatever movement you need to do, like dance, run, cycle, fitness, or whatever it is.
And even I know that saying these are my 5 things that I do every day and this is a habit like this is like the goal to get to this. It's not easy to get there. And I've been in the fitness industry for 15 years by the point I decided that I need to make these changes. It's taken me 3 years to make them stick. But just starting with one, like you said, pick that one thing and put it into your week. This is my goal for the week. I'm going to do this thing. Or like a daily thing and make it really easy. Check your steps. If I do 5,000, let's try and get 6,000 for 2 weeks and see what happens.
One thing we were discussing about being passionate about health and fitness, and then actually being an entrepreneur in health and fitness, and how it's like they're, oppositely correlated. You can be very passionate about fitness and wellness. I think we've both are entrepreneurs in the health and wellness, so we've gone through it and then realized, I think, how was your experience with that? How did you readjust with like, okay, I've set up this business because I'm passionate about it. I want to make people get fitter, healthier, but I need to take care of myself.
Yeah, I think it was a shock when we first opened, thinking I went from being in the fitness industry where I had ample time to train and to look after myself, and then went into owning a business where I had no time to look after myself, and everything became very stressful very quickly, and having to adjust to that, things definitely...
Because then it's like salaries, employees,
responsibility.
The toilet is not working.
Exactly. All these things. And that change, it was... I expected it, but it was still a shock how much it did dictate your life. And you do have to sacrifice, and things that go is like, oh, you don't have to train, you do this thing, so you skip training for one day.
Yeah.
And that happens multiple times over the course of a month. You've trained 50% less than usual, and then you start to feel negative about it because you're not in as good a mood. Why am I grumpy? Why am I down? And there's all these things start to spiral.
Yeah.
But I don't think that being necessarily in a fitness business, it makes it any different from being in any other industry where you're an entrepreneur. It's the same stresses. I think if anything, I have an advantage and the luxury of being in a space.
At least you're in the, you're exactly. Like, okay, I have an hour, let me work out.
This shows a lot of people that think, oh yeah, but you're just in the gym all day. You're sure you just must work out all the time. It's like, no, you work out more than I do, trust me.
Yeah.
I think it's just prioritizing that. And it got bad before it got good. I think I'm in a good place now. And I know that if I don't exercise 4 or 5 days a week, even if it's just half an hour of something easy a day, if I don't get my morning routine, or if I don't get to bed in time, there's going to be a negative effect on that. So knowing what helps me, and the when I made all these changes for this 4-month period, the business performed better as well. Yeah. Because I was more productive. I was in a better mood. I had more energy. Exactly. So looking after my health improved the health of the business. Yeah. And again, that goes for your family as well. If you look at, you have to love yourself first before you can serve anybody else.
I mean, you can't take care. I've learned it the hard way too. I'm sort of a caregiver to a part of the family, and it came to a moment where my health took such a deep dive that I realized, okay, if I'm not, again, we talk about the foundation, right? You have to build the foundation. And when it comes to you taking care of people, you're the foundation. Yes. So you have to take care of yourself. Yeah. So let's say I'm sure we have listeners that are like, okay, it sounds great, but the first step is so difficult, right? The first step is always so difficult. Yeah. And what would we say for somebody, let's say, is burnt out from work? And I think people are right now not working normal hours, burnt out from work, has family responsibilities, be it kids, caring for somebody, or basically they need to do that, come home, cook, and, third, also maybe don't have the financial means of like taking care of things. Like what would you say the first step should be? Or can be? And
this goes for health and fitness, but it goes for anything, is your motivation to do something is going to be strongly correlated to why and how important that is to you. So if I go, okay, I want to start exercising because I want to be healthier, if you can find more obstacles that are stronger and bigger than your reason for doing them, that's going to win every time. Yeah. So if I want to be healthy in 10, 20, 30 years, why do you want to be healthy in 30 years? Oh, because I have kids and my kids will be having kids by that time and I want to be around for my grandkids. Yeah. That's quite motivating. And that's probably going to be more powerful than me having to get up early to go to the gym because I have to fit it in the morning. Yeah. In terms of if you don't have access to a gym because of time or finances, is anything works. Like, it's not, you can get up and go for a walk for 30 minutes. You can go on YouTube.
Not today. Not right now.
In the morning. You
can go to the mall. That's what a lot of people do.
Or just get up really early and or go on YouTube and find a 10-minute exercise video because something is gonna be better than anything else. So finding a why is the most important thing. Yeah. And if your why is stronger or more powerful than the hurdles that you have to overcome, the why will always win. Yeah. But if you don't really know why you're doing it, it's going to be easy to roll back over and hit snooze. So finding the why.
We have something we call in Value of fear of finding out. So we have a lot of people because we do a lot of, customer surveys, and they're like, I want to do a blood test, but I'm scared of finding out what will happen.
I can see that.
So I think a lot of people also don't take that first step because they're like, I don't want to know how unfit I am, for example. Yeah. I don't want to know how my blood tests are doing. Yeah. But actually, knowing is power. Like 100%. You'll know it. Yeah. You'll improve it, and improving it shouldn't be so complex. Like you're saying, just go walk on the wall, at the mall, eat better. Less stress. I mean, that's a difficult one, but less stress is also one of the foundations. Yes. I would say, right? Try to do things that help you. Know your checklist. What makes you less stressed? What makes you stay sane? And a lot of people actually, it's part of it is fitness.
Dr. Fadi said the only tool that is actually proven to improve your health is exercise. Yes. And as you just said, it doesn't have to be complicated. You don't have to follow a really complicated, intense, challenging fitness program. It's just movement. Just start. Just do anything. Just do. Like I said, go for that walk. do something very simple. I think find something fun.
Yeah.
That can be half the hurdle is people don't enjoy going to the gym.
Yeah.
Go bike riding, find something you enjoy, find a group of people that you want to spend time with and do something active, drag your friends out for you for that walk, is find something that's fun, your compliance will be much higher. And then what starts to happen is because it's fun, you enjoy doing it, you do it more frequently, or you enjoy going more, you put more effort into it, the results get better, and you get those quick wins and you're like, oh, I've lost a little bit of weight, or I feel a little bit better, and then there's your motivation to continue. So finding something that's fun, finding your why, like why you want to do it, and some sort of accountability. So this could be a coach, this can be a friend, this can be some sort of like checking app that you share with people. We use one called Habit Share, when it's just, I have to tick that I did the thing I was going to say I was going to do. So some sort of accountability there. And then that's how you get started. And then when you see the quick wins, that's how you keep going. And there's other things like discipline and motivation. Those things are fleeting, and becoming a more disciplined person will allow you to stick to your exercise program more consistently. And then you start to get the results you want. And then when you start to make the progress, that's your first win. You're like, and we do this with clients as well, is like, okay, this is not a quick fix. This is going to take us 3, 6, 12 months to get there. But in the first 2 weeks, I'm going to give you a quick win. I'm going to stop your shoulder hurting. I'm going to make the scale move a little bit, just so you can see, this does work. We are heading in the right direction, small wins. And I think that's really crucial, because if you're just doing it for 3 months, nothing's really changed. You're probably not going to want to keep going.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And actually then you realize it's a no-brainer. Fitness has to be part of your life. It doesn't have to be complicated, but it needs to be.
And even like the training for longevity sounds really boring and unappealing to a lot of people, because it's like, who cares what's going to happen in 40 years? But you have to start now.
So important.
It's so important. You have to start now, because it's never too late, but the sooner you start, the better. But that's really hard to think about. Like, it's really, I'm very motivated, because when my son's 40, I want to be beating him at sports still.
Exactly.
So I'm motivated to be fit when I'm 40. But even now, if I don't do something this week that makes me feel good, or I don't see a win straight away, I'm kind of going to get a bit bored of that. I'm less likely to want to continue. Even though I know that in 40 years time, this is going to serve me. I want to see in a week, in a month, in 3 months, I want to see some progress to allow me to keep motivated.
I think what I really like about the whole longevity movement is that we know more about it, so it's more measurable. You can understand it. You know what you need to change today to make certain changes in the future, and that makes you feel more in control. And I mean, I'm somebody who, like, when I feel more in control, if I can feel that I can change something with my own actions, then you feel like, okay, I'm in control. I can do this. So I think that's the most important part of it.
For sure.
Thank you, Craig. This was a lot of fun.
I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.